Yeah, wow, this is a big room. So I think in my mind I was imagining maybe Annex Room 9B or some like little small intimate room with about 8 people, but this is big. Wow. Um, but yeah, you all look really excited and eager to learn what I've got to tell you about. Nice. Thanks, Catesy. Actually, do you guys mind? I just want to take a photo for my wife to prove to her that all those late nights weren't a waste of time. So, could you guys just move over a little bit? That's awesome. Silent mode. So, yeah, my name's Simon Lamb. I've recently just started at Microsoft, as in maybe 8 days ago. I'm pretty jazzed at the moment. I'm pretty nervous, but I'm pretty excited about the possibilities at Microsoft because there's just so many amazing people that I now have access to, and my main story about that is that the other day I was having problems with VSTS because DevOps is my main game. So I was having problems with VSTS, and I said to Coatsy, hey, I'm having these problems, and he goes, mate, you work for Microsoft. Just jump on Skype and just go and ask Donovan Brown, like the program manager. And I thought, really? I can do that? He said, yeah. So I jumped on Skype, sent him a message, and of course he responded and answered my question. And I thought, who else can I find? And I was just looking through the Skype directory, and there's like Anders Hallsberg, like the godfather of C#. And like I could just send him a Skype message if I wanted to, and it'd be a bit creepy, but I'd be like, hey, Anders, I just love what you did with Int64. Awesome. And it's that access that now I want to pay forward to you guys, because I've been sitting out there for 8 years as the evangelists and the regional directors and the MVPs of the past have been answering my questions. So hopefully I can help to answer some of yours, particularly in the identity management and authentication space. So basically, the overarching aim of today's session is to take an application with no authentication and put in different types of authentication using the different developer libraries that are available from Microsoft. So let's have a look at the agenda. So we'll be introducing Active Directory, talking about just showing some of the kind of its features in regards to resilience and performance, scalability. We'll take a walk down memory lane. So we'll talk a little bit about authentication strategies and how we've been doing it over the years and what's important now. We'll talk about the application model, which is probably one of the most important things in the way that Azure Active Directory allows you to provision applications and assign permissions and delegate permissions to other resources. We'll talk about the developer experience, DX, my favorite team at Microsoft. And then we'll look at integration, so using the Graph API and just seeing what we can do from our own applications and interact with Azure Active Directory. And then we'll have a little bit of an intro to Azure AD B2C, the new kid on the block. So I guess this is the marketing slide, but it shows some pretty impressive numbers. So yeah, there's a lot of authentications happening on Azure AD, and you know it must be robust because it underpins so much. Who here uses Azure AD? Yeah. Who here uses Office 365? Yeah, well, you all should put your hands up for the first question because you're using Azure AD, and the amount of traffic that thing must have to take is amazing. So those numbers are definitely impressive. So what is it? It's an identity management system to handle multiple. You can handle multiple tenants in it. So what does that mean? It enables you to not only manage your own like say Office 365 presence, but also able to have trusts with other organizations. It's, like I said, built to support global scale. So, imagine in order to support all those cloud workloads, it has to be amazingly scalable and reliable. And what can we do with it? So basically, I guess the most important thing was originally to be able to extend your on-premise Active Directory up into the cloud. So we'll go into that in a little bit in a couple of slides, but that's one of the most interesting capabilities. We need to be able to provide single sign-on across our cloud applications. So we need to be able to have a number of cloud applications, and I need to be able to log into one, and I don't have to go and log into every other one. I need to be able to manage my users and access to the cloud resources, and that's where the management tools come in to allow you to access those users, the Graph API to allow you to write your own custom user management experiences, and also to be able to use the app model to define what other resources they can hit. And finally, there's a whole lot of other features such as multi-factor authentication, which are native to the stack. And that one is particularly interesting to me because now I've started at Microsoft, I now have to deal with a whole lot more security. So the multi-factor has become a real thing for me. And I'm really loving the experience because I'm an Android user. So when I now log into anything in Microsoft, it wants to do that second factor, that second factor call to me, and does it via my phone. And that's all native to the stack. And then it's able to leverage my Android APIs to be able to use fingerprint. So I can just go and log into a website, sends a thing to my Android phone, and I click on and use my finger and log in. It's a sweet experience. So the need for cloud-based identity. So typically in the past we had our on-premise Active Directory, and when you had an on-premise Active Directory, you basically there's a handshake, right? You bring a computer onto the network, you kick it to the domain. It has, and these things happen all at a low network level. And it's able to go with the local ID and it's join a registry, and then we can use all our local applications using LDAP to access the registry and whatever on-premise applications we have. That doesn't really work that well for cloud-based applications. Of course, you could federate things open up firewall ports and get stuff to go into your local network, but how do you make something scalable if every time you go and hit Office 365, it has to go to your local domain? Of course, it isn't scalable. So, and when I mentioned before the extension of an on-premise AD, this is where this starts to become important. So Microsoft came up with the idea of Azure AD, enabling you to synchronize your on-premise AD using originally DirSync, and now I think AD Connect is the kind of tool you'd use. And you'd synchronize that up into the cloud, and you now have access to your identity or entities from a whole lot of from an app model and a whole lot of cloud workloads that are registered in Azure. So that enables us to infinitely scale, and we have the reliability of Azure. This is the closest meme I could find to federation. So federation protocols. So there's a number of them up there on the screen. The ones we really care about today is going to be OAuth and OpenID Connect. OAuth being an authorization protocol, not specifically authentication, which OpenID adds on top of it. So your OpenID being based on OAuth. OpenID adds an ID token in to allow you to send that identity with the token. We won't really be touching on SAML and AWS Federation, but I've just kind of put them in there for completeness. So, why do we federate? So, originally, before the idea of federation was a reality, you'd have to go to a website and basically give them your username and password. Now, this obviously has some drawbacks. And can anyone tell me, I've probably got three main drawbacks for this. Sorry, can anyone tell me one of the drawbacks for this? Yeah, man. Reuse, yep, perfect. Anyone? Yeah? Yeah, sure. You have to give them your password. Anyone else? Oh. What's that? Yeah, exactly. So, one, we had to trust unknown applications and websites with our credentials, which is pretty crazy. If we had to go and update anything, if we wanted to change our password, and we've registered now with 15 websites, we've got to go to all those websites and update those passwords. And the last one, authorization was all in. So you give them your credentials, they can do whatever they want. There's no ability to specify roles and permissions and what activities you can do. So we're going to talk. So OAuth addresses this. So we're going to talk a little bit about OAuth, and this is basically the actors that are involved in OAuth. So basically the resource server being the one that contains our resources, and it would be receiving requests from our clients. The resource owner, the user, the client application that's making access to that, or making calls to that resource server, and the authorization server, the one that's actually going to do the authentication and authorization. And we've got a number of different grants that OAuth provides us with. We're probably going to be focusing today, or the demos, we're focusing on the authorization code grant and the client credential grant. So the authorization code grant being what you typically use in a website where you're not in a single page application, but a normal server-based application, where it'll go and make the call to the authorization server and get the tokens that are required, so that you can then store them in your session or in a cookie and use them for subsequent calls. This is probably also important because the different types of accounts that all these authentication solutions I'm going to show you today are looking at. The first one being personal accounts. So we're talking about Microsoft accounts. So your Hotmail account, or you can register any Microsoft account. Well, I think anyone's made the mistake of registering a Microsoft account, and they also have an Office 365 account on with the same name, you would just love that screen that every time you go and log in, it's like a personal account, work account. LastPass doesn't love it. So then we're looking at work and school accounts. So that's your Azure AD entities. Everything that's stored in Azure AD. And then finally, once again, the resilience thing. So we're in 24 data centers around, or greater than 24 data centers around the world. So, and it's obviously built to scale, so we can trust it there. So, the Azure AD application model. So, we're probably interested in everything above the line, everything that's out of the water. And as I was saying, it has the actual directory service, and then the application model, which is the framework that allows us to provision applications and apply permissions and roles. And it's all presented to us through the Azure portal. The other exciting thing for me is that I've been working with two Azure portals for so long, because I wanted to go and do everything to do with user management. I had to go to the old portal for that. And then if you wanted to go and do anything new, you had to go into the new portal. And just juggling all these different browsers and windows was really annoying. But as of, I think, the 16th of January, all the user management is now available inside the new portal, which is pretty crazy. So, specifically, what does the application model do? So, it takes authentication requests and goes to the identity store in order to authenticate. It specifies what other resources the application needs to access and what permissions need to be delegated. It allows you to provision applications, which once again can all now be done in the new portal, which is exciting. It allows users and admins to deny and grant applications on their behalf. And it allows you to control access to your own applications. Basically, application provisioning is all about an application entity and a service principal. An application is a definition or a template that represents an application in Azure AD, and a service principal is what's actually what the permissions and rights are applied upon. And the application provisioning is even dynamic ability to do this, where you can go and ask for a certain application, and it will automatically create the service principal on your behalf. So let's look at provisioning an application. Hey, there you go. So you might be wondering why I've got two laptops up here, because I lost this one yesterday and I've been up all night redoing demos on this one. So it's just been found and brought back to me at the start of my session. I was like, thank you. Let's turn Skype off. Alrighty. So yeah, as I said, all in the new portal now. So let's go and take a look in there. Come on, mate. Okay. Can I go full screen here? I don't know what the hotkey is for full screen in Edge. Okay, so as I said, all the traditionally what you would have gone to the old portal for, now that's all available in the new portal. So we can come in here and manage our users and groups, which is fantastic. But we can also, sorry. Don't hit back. But we can also go and register applications. So if we go and look in our app registrations section, we can see applications that have been registered by me. Now, traditionally, there's some PowerShell foo that you had to do in order to go and assign certain roles to service principals. And if you ever worked with the Graph, the Graph API, you'll know that you have to go and use the MS Online client to go in and assign permissions to service principals. That's no longer necessary. You can actually come in and, if you go and add an application, we've now got this magic button up here, grant permissions. So you can go and click on it and your Azure Active Directory and say, well, I want this application to be able to read and write directory data. And then you can save that. Wow. It was doing it for me. All right. So in order to provision an application, let's say we want to provision an application to use the Graph API using the client credential flow. So that would basically be some kind of daemon application coming in and just directly accessing using a client secret and application ID straight into Azure AD to authenticate. And typically, you'd do that for some kind when you want to authenticate an application, authenticate as an application rather than as a user. So we'd register our application. We'd go and put in just any reply URL because it's not important here, and then we would go and specify a key. And we can set a duration on that, which this never expires. And it's that time you'll be presented with the key, and you better copy it then, because that's the only time you'll be able to look at that key. If you forget the key, then it's as simple as coming in here and adding another one. But basically, that secret and that application ID will be what you require to go and access that using the client credential flow. So it's pretty much provisioning an application. It's pretty simple. I'll get back to the slides. Thanks. Wow. Cool, sorry. So, DX, developer experience. So this is going to be all about the different kind of developer libraries that are available to us as Microsoft developers. So that's primarily ADEL and MCEL. So the Azure Active Directory Authentication Library is what we traditionally used, and we'll talk about the different endpoints that they are coupled with. So the ADEL is primarily only Azure AD accounts. It's those identities only. There's no capability in there for talking to Microsoft accounts. But as we talked about before, that experience of when you log in and you get shown the personal account and the Azure AD, the work account or personal account login. Well, that's where Microsoft's giving you the capability to access both of those within your application. So MCEL, or Microsoft Authentication Library, presented by Vittorio at the last build, is primarily about hitting V2 endpoints. And let's talk a little bit about that. So there's a V1 endpoint. So there's the traditional endpoints that were Azure Active Directory only. So if you wanted to be able to access, if you want to have your application and expose it to use both Azure AD accounts and Microsoft accounts, you had to use two different developer libraries. You had to register it for two different endpoints, and you needed two different app registrations. So I guess that's not ideal. So the V2 endpoints, or the converged API, was introduced. And that converged API allows us to have one set of app registrations, although through a new portal, not through the standard portal. We'll have a look at that. But that one set of registrations means that within your applications you can leverage both account types. Demo time. So there's a bit in this, and in the sorry. Basically, the story I'm going to present today is to show you a Windows Store application that is a Christmas list. And the Christmas list allows you to choose a person and assign different presents or gift requests against that user. And that's kind of representing a local data store showing your entities or your identities. And then, but of course, we want to inject inject authentication into that that Windows Store application. Wow. So the next thing we're going to show using ADEL to do that. So using Azure AD identities, and then we're going to extend that further to see how much work's required to get it to use MCell, so we can leverage both those Azure AD and personal accounts. Alrighty. What? Sorry. Whew. Alrighty, so this is our Christmas list application. So basically, apologies, I'm not a designer and I'm colorblind. So basically, these are my children, Ruby and Charlie. And Ruby has one present in her list. If I go and switch to Charlie, she has no present. So Charlie loves Shopkins. So we're going to check that in. So this is the basic premise of the application, right? So this is representing identity, but we want to leverage identity that's not just within this application domain. So let's have a look at what we have to do. So basically, in order to add ADEL to this application, it's as simple as coming in here and typing ADEL. It'll know it. And we can go and grab that Active Directory client. What am I doing? This temporary machine's an i5 and this one's an i7, so my demos are too slower. Come on. Thanks, NuGet. Really? Okay. All right. Ah, there you go, finished. So, and I think in the interest of time, we'll just flick branches, and I'll just walk you through the changes. So I've added the NuGet package for Active Directory, or for ADAL. And then basically what I've done to the application is I've removed that drop-down box and just put in a button at the top. So let's actually just run it so I can show you, and then we'll go back and talk through the code. You're not going to love that deployment either. This is why you advised me against switching branches. Alrighty. So, different experience. Instead of a drop-down box allowing us to just choose a user, we can now sign in. So, God. Wow. Righty. So ADL's presenting us with the login box, and we can choose someone from that Azure AD. Remember, this is ADL, so I can't use Microsoft accounts. It's only Azure AD. So let's choose that one. Now we've logged in as Simon, and Simon has no gifts. Simon likes cats. So, and if I could go and switch to another user, and they'd have their own list. So the idea being that we've taken that drop down and moved it, that selection of a context, a user context, and we're now using a cloud-based identity. So let's have a look at what we had to do. So to go and add that NuGet package, and then within everything's just basically in the main page, but we went and provisioned an application using the portal that I showed you before, and the application ID is that one there, and then we've got some other information such as the tenant and this AAD instance. Those things are all required to build this static string that we'll pass to the ADL authentication context when we create it. So let's go and have a look at that. So basically, yeah, when we go and create the authentication context, and we pass in that string that we've generated up there for containing the parameters from our portal. And then it's as simple as basically calling getAsync with our getAsync on the H2 on sorry. Where are we? Where's getToken? There we go. Acquire. Thank you. So basically, it's as simple as calling acquire token on the auth context, and then we go and pass in our actual resource ID, what actual resource we're hitting, and the client ID, and that will return us a token, and which I'm just storing it, the actual user info, so I can present it in that text box. But yeah, not much to it. On the back end, if we go and look at those controllers, on the back end we had basically the original methods. Were these ones here. So this is when we're just passing up. Oh wow. How can I disable that? This could be horrific. All right. So yeah, basically these were the previous methods. So we're calling get, and it would be the actual owner. So that was when I had my drop-down box, it was either Ruby or Charlie. So yeah, and it's basically just going through an in-memory list and just grabbing out anything that's against, or a dictionary, anything that's against Ruby. So we've changed that because we don't need to pass up the owner anymore, because we now have a token that's being passed along with every request. So let's go have a look at our new get. So basically, because there's a token being provided, we can grab that information. We can go to that claims principal that gets generated by the OWIN middleware, and grab out the owner from that token. So therefore, all our methods can now be identity aware, and same for the post. The only other changes basically to the server would be that we had to provide put some settings in a config file so we can go and use it in our startup.auth. So basically we've added some NuGet packages, and then going into the startup.auth, we'll go and tell it to use Windows Azure Active Directory bearer authentication and provide those application settings that it wants. And I think there's one other call to hope it's without ReSharper. Anyway, there's another call. There's another call to startup, which actually calls this configure auth, but pretty simple. All right. Well, that's ADEL, and we'll have a look in a minute at moving ADEL to MSL, so we can start to leverage both those identity types. So, should I use the v2 endpoint? So, you need to kind of ask yourself, what identities do I want to support in my application? So, if it's only Azure AD, and you don't need Microsoft accounts or personal accounts, then you can probably just stick with the v1 endpoint. If you want the Microsoft accounts, you're going to have to use the v2, but there's limitations. So standalone web APIs, there's no on behalf of flow, so you can't kind of pass credentials on to like other APIs. You must use, well, it's not really a limitation, it's just a nuance. You have to use the new app registration portal, and we'll have a look at that in a sec. And look, the other restrictions, you can definitely go and have a look on they're all documented up on Microsoft's website. So let's have a look at MSL. MSL's, I reckon, probably a little bit easier to use, particularly since it just interacts with the client ID that you register up on the app portal, and you don't have to keep passing in the kind of array of information that you do when you set up an authentication context. But so let's go have a look at the new app portal. So this guy here. So this is showing all our converged applications, one that are utilizing both identity types, and I've created a few. So let's go and add one. Yeah. And the other cool thing about this is that it also allows me to just, if I've got a client application talking to a web API, I can actually register it all against the one application in here. So I can go and generate secrets to go and use for daemon style applications. But this is interesting. If I can go and add a platform, so I can go and create a web application, a web API, and then I can also go and create the Windows Store application that actually talks to it. And then we can go and assign our permissions to the graph, allowing us to specify what we want the client to be able to do. So once we've, and it's not unlike the same interface inside the portal. So once we've done that, so let's go and look at one that I've already set up. So the Christmas list app. So this is the next stage in our journey, in which I've registered, as I've said, as I was just saying, I set up the web component or the web registration to represent the actual web API. And then the mobile application, I think it's interesting they call it mobile application, but I think it's just everything that's not web is mobile. But and that basically represents the Windows Store application, or the UWP application that we've got. So let's go and have a look at that. Yeah, this one's actually super easy to, I'll probably just do this one live. So if you type, once again, mcell, it'll bring up the identity client. Probably won't flick this live because it'll have heaps of NuGet conflicts, so we might flick branches, but I'll just show you. Have I made the same mistake again? Really? The i7 wouldn't have done this. Just as I hover over close, it goes, okay. All right, let's just switch branches. Sorry. Okay. So the difference being in this guy, we've removed the Active Directory NuGet package. We've added instead this Microsoft Identity client. And then if we go and have a look inside our simple app, so we can see the differences. So basically, we go and create an instance of this public client application. So that just takes a client ID. So that's the client ID that we've registered up here. This guy here. That would be the same one. Yes, this one, EED. And then if we go down to our sign-in, so that's as simple as creating that public client application there. And then if we go to our sign-in, it's way simpler. So instead of me acquiring token and having to pass all the Rhesus ID and the client ID and all this stuff, you already basically passed it. You just pass some scopes. So if you're going to be talking to the Graph API, that will perhaps be a whole lot of scopes for defining what you need to be able to do in the graph. But in this situation, the scope is the actual web API. So we just pass the client ID of the application into that. And then I'm just grabbing the result and pulling the resulting user out so I can go and store it in my box up the top. So basically, I suppose we just run it up. But every other piece is the same. You get a token, you add that to the default request headers for every subsequent call, and you're good to go. No, we need a new website. The website, the web API that you're actually calling also has to talk using the same kind of library or strategy. So we've removed that looks weird. All right, let's just deploy that. Just deploying it over the top of the other one that we're using for the ADEL demo. And let's just run this client application, see if it's now utilizing the converged API. So now, work, school, or personal Microsoft account. So I can go and throw my Hotmail account in there. Yeah, and there's that experience. All right. And it should ask me for rights. Yeah, cool. So the exact same experience that you get using the Azure AD account, you'll now, those exact same permissions will be requested whether or not you use either account. So yeah, I'll take that. And then I can go and add my GIFs. Ooh. leave that alone. So now let's sign in with an Azure AD account. Got some problem with the website, which I'm not going to debug on stage. But yeah, it's essentially calling the exact same API, and it's now provides a different token, but it just works exactly the same on the back end. Alrighty, back to the slides if that's all right. Integration. So this is where we're talking about the Graph API. So the Graph API, it's not just an Azure AD thing. You can go to graph.microsoft.io and look at the myriad of Office 365 applications that you can access via the Graph. It's all REST. It's just standard HTTP methods. And it uses OAuth for authentication. So we can use those same tools to register apps to use the Graph and to delegate permissions. So you saw both in the new app for the converged API, the new app portal for the new converged API, and for the other one in the portal, you can go and say, well, I want this person to be able to read and write my directory data, or I only want them to be able to read. So you have that finely grained control on what you want them to be able to do. So this is the so in order to use the Graph API, I've just put together a little website, and this is it. Oh wow. So this website just uses ADL to authenticate, and that's why I'll go to a new window because it's caching the user. It'll ask me for my account, so I type that again. I'll grab it out of here. And then we can go and interrogate the actual, using the Graph API, we can go and interrogate the actual Azure AD. So you can see these entities from the Azure AD. You could potentially go in and edit them, delete them, see what a whole lot of other things that are available from the Graph, from Azure AD. But how do we make that happen? So let's load up that project, which I closed just before. Alrighty, and this is basically one of the demo applications that are available as part of the AD Quick Starts, which I've gone and just edited. So if we go and have a look at what you'd actually have to do to make it work, you'd have to come into the web.config and put that's why that logout wasn't working, so the redirect URL's wrong. We need to come in here and put a few settings in. So we have to go and put our client ID that we've registered on the portal. We need to go and because in the portal we've gone and assigned some keys. So let's actually just go and do that as a good demonstration. What am I doing? think it's on the other portal. All right, so don't worry about that. So we've gone into the portal. We created a new application. We've gone to the secret section. We've chosen to create a new secret and specified our expiry time. That's the secret. That's the key there. We've gone to our tenant. So when you go and get a new Azure subscription, your first Azure subscription, you'll probably have an Azure ID in there. That's the Azure ID. It'll be something.onmicrosoft.com. And the tenant ID, you can go into the Active Directory blade, and there's, I think on the overview tab, they'll have the actual ID of the tenant. And all that information is required for us to go and access the graph. So let's go and have a look inside one of these controllers. And so after the OWIN middleware takes care of establishing an authentication context, where am I? Come on. Basically, we're asking to So we've got that Active Directory client, and that enables us to execute async and pull back all the users inside the Active Directory. It also allows you to you can go and send filters and filter what you get back, as well as doing more like differential queries. So you could say, well, you can ask AD, well, hey, who's logged on between here and here, or what users have been created between this time and this time. But yeah, the resulting application simply being able to give us our own experience. Why does no need to do that? Let's go here. Our own experience for managing everything through the Azure AD from our own custom application. So, once upon a time, going on my kind of a journey with working with authentication and identity management, it started with using ACS. So Microsoft had a platform called Access Control Services, and you'd go and use that funny little Silverlight interface, and it gave you some pretty cool ability to manage your tokens and manipulate what claims you would see in those tokens, and as well as interact with other identity providers like Google. But it didn't have any kind of identity store on the back. Then along came Azure AD, and that, while it didn't have those features to allow us to manipulate the tokens and change the claims, it obviously had an app model and an identity store, so we could perform authentication. If you wanted to do your own thing with tokens, but you'd have to re-sign them in your own middleware. And I guess the benefit of using Azure AD is it does all that heavy lifting. And then along comes B2C. So Azure AD B2C, if you want to go learn about it in more detail than what I'll talk about now, Chris Paget has a session on it, I think today, in which he'll drill into it a little bit further. And tomorrow, Chris and I will we'll deep dive into it. So it'll be more about hitting it with Postman and showing you exactly what's happening under the hood. Left my clicker. So, B2C. So, it's focused on consumer identity management. So, currently you cannot use it with Azure AD accounts. So you can, it sits on top of an Azure AD, and if you go and create a local account, it'll store it in Azure AD. But it's only for authenticating through the B2C platform. So it's focused on consumers. It's not, you wouldn't presently use it for an enterprise application. Oops. There's support for multiple identity providers, so you can go and talk to Google, Facebook, LinkedIn. I think I can't remember the full list. But it brought back that ability to talk to third-party identity providers that used to be available in ACS, as now back on top of the Azure AD platform. This is the cool bit, the extensible claims. And extensibility all around. So I can change my tokens, I can put extra claims in them, I can change my sign up and sign in experience. The policy, this policy framework that they have in B2C is kind of like the secret sauce. Like it allows you to specify that when I sign in, I want it to look like this, and I want it to have my company's logo on it. And there's like a sign up policy. There's like a sign up or sign in policy. There's a reset policy, a reset password policy. There's there's a number of policies that you can change. As I said, Chris Paget's session, he'll drill into a lot further. He's a bit of a Jedi with this stuff, so he'll be able to take you through that in a lot more depth. Resources, because the Azure AD and B2C resources are actually pretty sweet. Like, particularly the B2C stuff, there's a lot up there. And the AD quick starts down the bottom, I think that URL's actually changed, but it'll redirect you to the right one. But yeah, there's the Azure blog, the graph blog, with all the news that's coming out in regards to the graph, documentation, feedback. But the samples one is what you really want to go and potentially have a look at, because there's just a myriad of different type of clients. You could have everything from Android to iOS to Node.js, single-paged apps, web APIs, and there's pretty much a sample for everything. So I would check that out. Visit Channel 9 to continue your learning path. And if you want to have a go at flying drones, I'd encourage you to put in your evals. Since my first session, I appreciate your gentle but honest feedback. And I think with that, if you want to go and chat to me, I'll be in the speaker lounge. If you want to talk to me on Twitter, there it is. Otherwise, any questions? There's Melbourne Shuffle. What's that? Does what work with it? So I can't see who's asking the question. Ah, cool. I don't know, and so ADFS always really scared me. being a developer is like, and not an infrastructure guy, but I think ADFS probably owes me, a few months that I'll never get back. But I can certainly find out if you want to come and chat to me. Cool, thanks, man. Alrighty, thanks so much.